What's happening, YouTube? I figured I would go ahead and I would do a first video on this kayak I just bought. Just because I'm modding a ton of stuff on it. Gonna be some stuff that you probably haven't seen before, or similar knockoffs, copies, whatever, but just kind of putting my own twist on it like I do with everything. So bought it from a guy local, really good price, just the yak, Ascend 128X. So from him I got the yak, paddle, an Ascend seat, and had a Minn Kota 30-pound trolling motor on it. That's up for sale. Just kind of some stuff thrown, all over the place. In the compartment, it's got a 20 amp hour lithium and a yak power controller. I gotta finish regrouping that, but got into it and started modding a bunch of stuff, and I just wanted to kind of make a first video on it because it's going to progress from here. So probably one of the first things I did was, so I bought the yak and it had the 30-pound on it. Then about a week later, I found a guy that had this Minn Kota 65-pound foot pedal trolling motor, completely beat up, ragged out, on marketplace. Bought it for $100. Completely broke it down. As you can see, it's got the shop colors. Went through it, put about $60 in parts in it, replaced the bearings, seal kit, new center section because the magnet was broke, bushings, just basically freshened it up top to bottom. So what I ended up doing was, if you can see, I'll come around, you'll see this mount on it. That was part of the factory mount that would bolt to your deck on a typical trolling motor that you pull up with like a cord and a handle. So I lobbed the end of that off, widened it an inch on each side to keep the pivot point, bolted it up. It's through the hull. It's got aluminum plates on the underside of it, all stainless, nylock. That's what I do. And so I got it mounted up. And a lot of guys with the trolling motors, this guy had, on the old one, he had a piece of 3/4 PVC with a bracket to steer it. And it was just basically on the yak power where you turn it on and it's wide open. So I wanted to keep the variable speed. I didn't know if I was going to reuse some of the stuff from the foot pedal. I kept all the old stuff, but I ended up buying a 100 amp controller, the variable speed off Amazon with forward and reverse switch. So got the mount handled, rebuilt, painted up, looking good, mounted. That part was done. As far as powering it, got the controller, and that's going to do that. And I wanted to figure out steering wise, because I'm trying to be completely hands-free. So basically I utilized the two cables that normally run to the foot pedal, a couple of brackets, ran them down through. And what they're going to end up doing is I'm going to get some shorter cables there'll be a connection point probably somewhere in the middle. And those will go to these pedals here. And then I'll just have push-pull foot steering. So kind of the best of all worlds. I'll have the variable speed on the bigger motor. I'll have the reverse option because of the controller, which is nice. I'll have foot steer. And then what I see a lot of other guys doing is they'll have a rope and pulleys and everything that pull their motor up out of the water. And so I just, for the money, I was like, it's a no-brainer. I built this bracket to go from rail to rail. Amazon, $45 for a linear actuator. Up here where the yak controller was, put a volt gauge on each side. One's going to be for my 24-volt battery running the motor. The other one's for my 12 volt. That's going to run basically all the lighting. But this switch here, if you go to the controller, you can turn it on and you can hit motor. And then this switch here basically will raise and lower the motor. And I figured out the gap on it, so when you push it down and it locks out, it's straight up and down. And then when the top comes up, it just bottoms out. So that's all the way down. And then you don't get into any kind of cords or this or that or the other. Motor spun around backwards because the cables aren't hooked up yet. So yeah, put the actuator on it, and I've got up and down with the switch, which is a pretty nice option. get into some weeds or some shallows, or when you're getting to the shore to load it, you can just bring it up, use the paddle for the rest of the way, and it's going to work out pretty well. So I wanted to utilize whatever I could on the yak power. That basically just supplies power to the actuator, which is very little current or amperage. The bow button still works. That port there, so if I wanted to plug in running lights or some pod lights or whatever, the stern button still works. This one back here, I'm guessing those were there from the factory because they're recessed. I did add this one right here off of port number 2. Took this rod holder out, built a bracket to basically cover the rod holder where it was. And this is 3/4 aluminum. Built a bracket, rubber lined. Built the housing out of 2.5-inch aluminum pipe. And this basically will fold up into the up position like so that you've got an overhead light on you at night. And we go to button number 2, and there's the light on. Button number 1 on the controller runs all the blue LEDs inside, flush mounted those. Got a couple under the seat, got a couple in the back. So this is all the stuff that's going on for the last couple of weeks. And right now, I started modifying the seat. So the seat's got 2 positions, lower and the upper. I'd prefer it to be up a hair more, and I'd also like it to swivel. So the best part about these seats are they're a 2-part, basically just unscrew them. And then I took some 3/4 aluminum, because I've got a bunch of it kicking around, 1/8-inch wall, and made a runner from side to side, drilled the existing seat frame, put nutserts in it, 1/4-20. Stainless bolts, that bolts that to that. These 4 tall bolts you see are just basically indexing the mount. And then I'm about to do basically the opposite on this side of the seat. So what it'll give me is, it'll give me the swivel mount, plus it'll give me 1.5 inches more height on the seat, which will be kind of nice. So just trying to keep everything real kind of slimline, clean. Got 6 gauge that's run inside, coming out this back plate here. If you can see, I still have to make the connection to the trolling motor wires. This back section here, everybody runs like that yak box with the rod holders and all that. I am building an aluminum box out of 065 sheet. That's going to basically take up from the back of the seat almost all the way to that blue bracket, which will house the 24-volt battery, the 12-volt battery, the power controller, speed controller for the motor. I might possibly relocate the yak power module in there as well. And then the back half of the box will be divided to hold, I got to figure out the numbers, but probably about 12 3600 cases. And the other side of it, it'll be sectioned. I'm going to do an inside box, outside box, fill it with AB foam, and I'll have a built-in cooler. And then outside on both sides will probably be 4 rod holders. So